The year was 1547. England's throne trembled under the weight of a new king, a boy of only 9 years. Henry VIII was dead, and his frail son, Edward VI, ascended to rule a kingdom stained by his father's blood and ambition. In the shadow of that throne, a man watched, handsome, bold, and hungry for power. His name was Thomas Seymour, Lord High Admiral of England, and brother to the late Queen Jane Seymour, the beloved mother of the young king. Thomas had charm like a weapon, smooth, dazzling, and deadly. In the candlelit corridors of Hampton Court, he moved like a predator cloaked in silk. Few men dared to oppose him, and even fewer women could resist his dangerous allure. When Henry VIII died, the power struggle began immediately. Thomas's elder brother, Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset, became Lord Protector, the de facto ruler of England until the boy king came of age. But Thomas would not accept living in his brother's shadow. He wanted power, wealth, and something far darker. He wanted to be the center of England itself. He began with the widowed Queen Catherine Parr, Henry's sixth and final wife. Catherine, intelligent and deeply religious, had barely survived the king's paranoia. Within months of Henry's death, Thomas courted her with whispers of love and freedom, and perhaps she believed him. Despite court disapproval, they secretly married in spring 1547. At first, it seemed like a romance born from survival, the beautiful queen and the charming courtier. But soon, under that glittering surface, something vile stirred. Living with them at Chelsea Manor was Princess Elizabeth, the 14-year-old daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, a girl whose sharp mind and regal poise foreshadowed her destiny. She had been sent to live with Catherine for her education and protection. But Thomas saw her differently. He saw her beauty, her potential, and perhaps a reflection of his own ambition. What began as teasing, tickling early morning intrusions into her chambers and inappropriate games grew darker. Servants whispered, Catherine's ladies turned pale, and Elizabeth herself became uneasy. One morning, a maid walked in to see Thomas cutting Elizabeth's dress to ribbons while she laughed nervously. Another time, he entered her bedroom before dawn uninvited while she was still in bed. Catherine at first dismissed it as playful, but her patience soon broke when she caught them together in a compromising moment. Elizabeth was swiftly sent away, her innocence replaced by shame and confusion. It was then that her understanding of men and power began to harden. She would never again allow herself to be controlled or humiliated. But Thomas, restless and arrogant, only spiraled deeper into recklessness. His marriage with Catherine turned sour, especially after she gave birth to a daughter, Mary Seymour, and soon after, died from childbirth fever. With her death, Thomas lost not only his wife but also his royal shield, and the court began to see through his glittering mask. He started writing to the young King Edward, trying to sway his affections and undermine his brother's authority. He offered the king freedom, money, and independence, even schemed to kidnap him from court. It was treason wrapped in charm. By 1549, his enemies were closing in. Elizabeth stayed silent, but she never forgot what he had done. The girl he had sought to manipulate would one day become the most powerful monarch England had ever known. And she learned her first lesson about power from the man who tried to ruin her. Thomas Seymour's downfall had begun, but the fire that would consume him had yet to ignite. The Tower bells tolled in the cold dawn of January 1549. London slept under a veil of fog as Thomas Seymour, Lord High Admiral, was arrested on charges of treason. The details were damning. He had broken into the king's chambers at night with a loaded pistol, perhaps planning to abduct or assassinate the boy, though even his true intentions may have died with him. The guards had caught him, trembling and armed, within the walls of the royal palace. The Privy Council met in shock. How could the Queen's widower, the uncle of the king, commit such madness? Evidence piled up, letters to conspirators, bribes, and plans to seize power. Even his own servants testified against him. Yet through it all, Thomas stood proud, still vain, still smiling, convinced he could talk his way out of death. He was granted no trial. His guilt was too great, his arrogance too visible. The council signed his death warrant. His brother Somerset wept but did not intervene. In the Tower of London, Thomas remained defiant. He wrote letters to the king, claiming love, loyalty, and misunderstanding, but no one listened. His charm had finally failed him. On March 20th, 1549, he was led to the scaffold on Tower Hill. The crowd gathered to witness the fall of a man who once dined with kings and seduced queens. His face was pale but proud. When asked for his final words, he said calmly, "He that hath been most high in authority and wealth, and being by the will of God cast down, ought to beware lest he despair. I shall take it patiently." He knelt before the block. The executioner's axe flashed in the grey morning light. One swift blow and the Lord High Admiral was no more. His head rolled into a basket, the blood steaming in the cold air. The man who had sought the crown through marriage, lust and manipulation was now another ghost of the Tudor age. Elizabeth, then 15, heard the news in silence. She made no public comment, but those close to her said she turned pale and walked to her window, staring for hours. She had learned two things that day: the danger of desire and the price of power. Years later, when she became Queen Elizabeth I, she would rule with an iron will, guarded, calculating, and untouchable. No man ever gained control of her heart or her throne. In many ways, Thomas Seymour's betrayal forged the queen the world would come to fear and admire. The tower that had once held him became her fortress. The lesson he left behind, that love can be a weapon and ambition a curse, echoed through her reign. Thomas Seymour's death was horrific not only for its brutality, but for the hollow glory it exposed. He had everything: looks, title, connections, and royal blood, but his lust for power devoured him. In the end, the man who tried to shape the future queen instead became a dark shadow in her story, a warning carved in blood.